And this is going to be super controversial because this goes against everything that's being talked about right now. Think about a time that you felt frozen by uncertainty. Have you ever sat on an idea for so long that it lost its fire, it got cold, it cooled off, or you never actually even did the thing? You start losing confidence. You start questioning everything. You start to do things that you wouldn't normally do. All progress starts with the truth. So where are you freezing? And then what's that one next step or one next action that you can take today? Welcome to today's episode of Influence by Design. I'm your co-host for today, Samantha Riley, and joined by my partner in business and life, Leon. Welcome, Leon, and thanks for joining me here again today.
Thanks for having me back again.
We're going to have like a coffee shop chat. Oh my goodness, I really struggled to say that. A coffee shop chat today on a topic that is at the back of a lot of people's minds, and they may or may not even realize how much it's affecting them, but it's something that we're really seeing affecting a lot of people. And there's quite a lot of business owners that we're seeing right now that are almost heading into freeze mode. So we're going to call the elephant out in the room and talk about the fear that's out there right now and how to move forward, because it's not the time to freeze. Well, it's never a time to freeze in business, right?
Absolutely. No, keep moving forward.
Absolutely. So, like I said, let's call it the elephant in the room. It is a little bit harder right now than it has been, in the last few years. There are fewer buyers. There are tighter wallets. There's some fear with the political landscape. It's feeling a little bit erratic. There's some big changes happening. Well,
it feels a little crazy right now.
And if it does feel a little bit crazy, the US is making some big changes. Australia and Canada are in the ramp up to elections, and people are feeling it. And yeah, I mean, what do you want to say to this right now?
Well, I was actually just thinking about every time we there's some odd things, and every time we hit an election, it seems to change the landscape of business a little tiny bit for a couple of months or so. And I remember you telling me about your dance shops that you had, where when an election would come up, that they would just stop buying, or they would really cut back at least.
Yeah, it's really weird when an election is announced, people stop buying. We tried to unpack this many times. I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense to me, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But definitely when elections are called, like, people pull back.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I've personally not noticed it with my spending habits, but I notice it in other people's spending habits.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Still, I just don't understand why, because it doesn't seem to relate to anything particularly. Like your car tires, they still wear out. You have to replace them. Your ballet shoes. What's the ballet shoe? The point shoes. They still wear out. You have to replace them. Why are they still buying them?
Yeah.
I think particularly as and we think about the shop, for example, it was like those people have jobs and doing their thing. The actual election is not going to directly affect them in that 6 to 8 weeks. So
no, not at all.
It's quite odd.
Yeah, absolutely. So these things are happening, and what we're noticing happening with business owners is they're like having this mini freak out, like, what I was doing isn't working, or I don't understand what's happening, and they're sort of freezing. But why we want to talk about this is, think about a time that you felt frozen by uncertainty. Have you ever sat on an idea for so long that it lost its fire, it got cold, it cooled off, or you never actually even did the thing? Because this is what happens when you're in freeze mode. People talk about fight or flight, but in fight or flight, that's still movement. There's also freeze, where, you just stop making decisions, stop making offers. And really what I notice you do is you start losing confidence. You start questioning everything. You start to do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a quick story. As you know, used to work for Woolworths for many years in the
Mm-hmm.
retail game. And
And just for our international listeners, Woolworths is one of our big grocery chains over here in
yeah,
Australia.
top two. Well, top three now anyway.
Top, yeah, yeah.
It's my top two. So I remember this particular day we were having a coffee, and the shop I was at, you can have a coffee just outside near the car park. Now, a little
Uh-huh.
kid came wandering out of the out of the shop and across the car park, but he actually wandered across the traffic flow. And there was about 7 or 8 of us standing around having coffee, and we all froze. And luckily, the driver just missed the kid. But
Oh,
you start questioning, going, "Why did I freeze? Why did everyone freeze? What was it that triggered that? Why did we freeze?" Because any other day of the week, I swear I would have run over and grabbed the kid.
mm,
But I don't understand why we froze.
yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, the it kind of seems a bit not normal to what you are. I
yeah,
don't know why it is, but it just froze.
yeah, yeah. Wow, I'm so glad that kid was all right. Oh, stories like that make me
Yeah,
yuck, yuck, yuck.
freak the hell out of us,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
yeah, totally. So that's like in that coffee situation, but in business, it can look like over researching, like feeling like you need to
Yeah.
research for days and days on end and not actually do anything. It can look like under posting, not sending emails or not showing up on social media, hesitating to make offers, or not even like making sure that your calendar is full, like really pulling back. It's this analysis paralysis of not showing up. I think that's the biggest thing, not showing up, really, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I was going to absolutely butcher that and say procrastination paralysis, but that's not it. So,
It's definitely not procrastination analysis. It's the
but
opposite of.
there could be a lot more procrastinating as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that could feel that because they're unsure of what's happening, they're afraid to get something wrong.
Yep.
However, unless you take action, you can't get something wrong. Like you can't, I don't believe you even get things wrong in business. It's always a learning. I mean, if you repeat something over and over and over and over, I think that's a problem. But essentially, we can take 10 actions and 9 of them won't work. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that we're getting the data, or as someone said to me the other day, the data. They thought it was funny that I put an R in my data. We need to get the data and the feedback from the market, the actual numbers, the actual reasons why something's not working, so we know how to change. And in actual fact, what I'm noticing in our business right now is we're actually moving faster. So we're changing up things so quickly because we're trialing what's working and what's not, because I know that the way that we did business 6 months ago isn't working in the same way.
Yeah, it feels like I know with AI and the way that I
Mm.
suppose the business landscape is, it feels like everything's moving really fast. And I think you need to kind of move a bit faster to keep up with more business. The other thing I was going to ask you, Sam, is do you feel that if you look hard enough, there's always going to be one of these, issues? There's always going to be an election somewhere. There's always going to be like, if you look hard enough, you can find a problem. I don't know if
Yes.
that also comes into it.
I'm so glad you said that, because the reason we're having this conversation is because people are talking about it. But there's always something there. There's always something happening that is out of our control. And what we're talking about here is, obviously we can't get control of these external situations, but we can control how we show up, how we react. So we need to make sure that we've got the resources at our fingertips, or the resourcefulness to be able to move through any situation. I mean, think about 2020, March
Yeah.
2020. I mean, that was a big freeze point, right? But the people that did really well were the people that just like shifted and altered their trajectory really quickly.
I feel like you need to remember that too, that 2020 was probably a disaster for a lot of people, but there's a whole bunch of other people that did really well out of it that, absolutely capitalized on it because they moved fast and capitalized.
Yeah. The coaching industry blew up in 2020. It was, in actual fact, it was exceptionally easy. Obviously, there was the people, like I said, that froze very early on. And when I think about what we did, we were, when everything went into lockdown, that was the exact weekend that we were meant to be having an in-person intensive for our clients. I will never forget it because we had to make that call a week out. What do we do when no one knew what was happening? It's fine to look at things look back on things. But when we were sort of that week leading into lockdown and everyone's like, what's going on? And we've got people saying, hey, I've booked flights and, we're in, have you got the venue or, what's happening? To make that decision at that time, it would have been exceptionally easy to freeze and wait for that external call of what needed to be done. But we only had control over what we could do, our reaction, and we had to make that call that, okay, we're not going to go. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to anyway because everything went into lockdown,
well,
but we didn't
as it
know
turned
that
out,
at the time.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's exactly
trying to make
right.
that decision in that week with very little knowledge of kind of what was going on because we only received, certain amount of information through, well, I suppose it was the press at the time, that's through media, but really it was quite difficult to make a decision because we just weren't sure. And then you add in some complications of, are you going to be able to fly? Not fly? Can you? I don't know. Can you even get between different suburbs? And that, as we know, what happened, it got really crazy. But I think we made a good decision at the time, and probably the best we could at the time.
Actually, I know we made the best decision, and you know why? Because we didn't think through, okay, well, let's just cancel this. What we did was flipped it to how can we make sure that we're looking after our clients, making sure that we make the impact in the greatest possible way. And what we did was flipped with only a few days' notice and did the very first virtual intensive. Now, again, looking back, everyone has done virtual intensives, but we were only on a few days' notice. How do we do this? How do we pull it together? How do we create an experience virtually like we would have done in the room? And I'm super proud of what we pulled together. And it was actually a big turning point in our business too, because our clients were like, oh, whoa, what you did when the rest of the world was in freeze mode and the way you showed up and the way you pulled this intensive together and the way you, because not only did we do that, but everything that I'd planned to present, we threw out the window too, because that wasn't relevant at the time.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
still writing and creating during the intensive in real time.
Yeah. So it was a rather quick turnaround as well to get that done, but you got there and you did it. And I think this is where speed to market kind of kicked in and went, right, what do we need? What's relevant right now? And that's what you got in, added that to what the intensive was going to be. So yeah, it really changed from what it was originally going to be. And I think now I feel like we're one of the first to kind of go with it, and I think,
we were definitely.
yeah. Well, I remember at the time too, there was others that they just shut down. Oh, they froze.
Yes.
Right. Like months and
Yes.
months, maybe like 6, 9, 12 months. And that actually impacted, I know that impacted their businesses a lot because they didn't do anything.
Absolutely.
They just shut down.
Yeah. So we're talking about something obviously that was very big at that time, but some people might be feeling, some version of that right now. And the number one takeaway that I want you to take from this is that no matter what's happening, no matter what your fear is, reframe that fear as fuel. Like, what if your fear was actually a signal to move and to not hide? Because that is the difference between businesses that continue to grow and businesses that do the opposite and potentially fail. I definitely saw this thinking back when we very first opened our first retail store. It was in the early 90s, and in Australia, the interest rates were insane. Our personal mortgage was 18% interest. Like, it was
Ooh, that's
crazy.
nasty, isn't it?
Oh, It was nasty. And our shop was in a mortgage belt area where all generally it was two parents of young children that were working ridiculous hours just to pay the mortgage, and there was not much left over. And we were in an industry, we were in the dance industry that, if you can't afford to pay your mortgage, it's the children's dance classes are just like cut. What it did for our industry was there was quite a few people in the industry that did shut because it was hard for them. For us, what it did was the opposite. It's like, well, what can we do right now to get through this? And it was things like create really lean systems, like have a look at what stock do we need to cut that's not potentially going to sell right now. Let's just make sure that we're putting all our money into those basics that people need. When we are quiet, what can we do for our marketing? What can we do that's different? We trialed a lot of different marketing at that time that we probably wouldn't have tried at other times, because the times were hard, but to be innovative and think, how do we work through this? And one of the things, or one of the, I use the word thing a lot, right? One of the strategies
we know what you mean.
One of the strategies that we came up with, and again, looking back, you're like, wow, that's nothing, like whatever, like everyone does those. But we were one of the very, very first people that had a loyalty card. I'd never even heard of them before. What's also awesome about this is not only did we have loyalty cards, our customers paid for our loyalty cards. Like, you don't see that so around good. Very much, do you? We collected all the data of our customers. They paid for the loyalty card because they got a discount. We got all of their details. And we used to do mail outs, old school mail, printing off a sheet, stuffing it in an envelope. Actually, my kids used to help stuffing it into an envelope.
Oh, they would love that.
I hated that. And I had to go, why do we have to do this? Well, because if we don't do this, you're not going to get XYZ next week. But we were really innovative and thought outside the box a lot, and trialed and tested new things. And I think that is the opportunities that are available to people that don't freeze. Be innovative, think outside the box, trial different things, because you don't know what's going to stick.
Yeah. I wanted to just cut back a little bit to something you said there about running lean.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling that this is, and I think you may have mentioned this before to me as well, but I think it's what made the shops actually run way more profitable as the times got better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a great benefit from that as well.
I often talk about this. Like I said, a lot of people in our industry did close during that time. Let me tell you, when it flipped and times became better, we had a profit margin that was higher than anyone in our industry. And in actual fact, won us awards for being able to come through that in the way that we did. So we were one of the top 10 stores in that industry in the whole country. And I honestly believe it's because of what we implemented in the hard times.
Yeah. And I think that's just brilliant as well. The other thing was that you started pushing to, like you had the loyalty card, you went, how else can we serve our customers? And that created a way of doing business. So it'd be crazy not to continue that afterwards as things got better. So yeah, that Absolutely. Was interest rates were really bad and whatever else, but as it keeps going, so, born out of, hard times was a really good business model that operated really well. So even though things look a bit tough and people are freezing, if you can not freeze and actually use that to your advantage and go, well, what can we do now? And that can multiply later. So I think that's a benefit.
Yeah. So what if something wasn't breaking down? What if instead it was a new direction? So I think right now, and this is something that we sometimes do really well, and I'll be brutally honest, sometimes we do get caught with our noses to the grindstone. But when we do this thing, it always pays off in spades. And that's taking a step back from the day-to-day operations, getting rid of all devices, and just, taking ourselves to a coffee shop or taking ourselves even out into the backyard or to the beach with a pen and a piece of paper and just brainstorming. What is working well, what's not working well, what could we do? I'll say, all right, just stick with me. I've got this like crazy idea and it probably isn't going to work, but let me spit it out and let's see what you feed back to me, and let's have a conversation about what it could potentially turn into. But if we tried to do that in the day-to-day in the office, it doesn't happen in the same way. So right now, like, make sure that you have some CEO time booked into your calendar where you pull away from that day-to-day operations and just explore and get ready to experiment.
Yeah, I think it needs to be that. I'm going to do like hand signals now. So if you're listening to audio, you can't see this, but my hand's like pulling away. So we're going back out and like 30,000 feet view to see, like, so you can look at the whole situation, take yourself out of the business, see what's going on, see where the gaps are, see what your current clients are saying, what your potential clients are needing. So you can actually get some clarity about what your offer can be to the market as well. And then you can like zoom back in again.
Absolutely, because the antidote to freezing is clarity plus action. So you need to be able to step back to get that clarity and then step back in, like come back in and take the action.
Yeah. Love that.
I think that it's also a really important time, and I'm noticing that I'm doing it even more, is really coming back into like, what's your values and are you in alignment? And I have a document next to my desk which is my human design prosperity code, and it's based on all of my gates and my type and my authority and my profile and my centers being defined or undefined. And I actually have created a document. And sometimes if I'm like, oh, like, let's be honest, we all have those moments where you just think, oh, I don't know, like this doesn't feel right, or I'm afraid to do something, or whatever it is,
Like
those
gut
negative,
feel.
yeah, those negative, no, not the gut feel. It's the negative monkey mind that starts
Mm-hmm.
to play.
Yeah.
You've got the old
The
monkey with the
monkey mind.
symbols in your head. Yeah. The reason I keep this document next to me is because I will go back and I'll just quickly have a flick through. Oh, that's right. I'm designed to help people to repool their resources or use their resources well. I'm designed to help people start the vision that they've had for a long time, or this fantasy that they would love to do. It's I'm here on earth to help people to move on that, to create businesses that are profitable. And when I get back and just have that moment of like, that's right, that's what I'm here for, I have to keep going. It's my design. And when I'm living in my design, I get that feeling of fulfillment back. I get that feeling of joy back, that feeling of excitement back. So really getting clear on your values, your design, whether it's your human design or gene keys or whatever methodology you use, but get really clear and understand how you're designed to move through the world. And is that the way that you're doing it? Are you building the right thing? Are you feeling the right cues from your body for decision making? Blah, blah, blah.
I think it's, how would you say it? To be in a good place,
Yeah.
and then couple that with, your 30,000 feet view of what the next right thing is. But what would you say to kind of, well, I don't know, melding those two together and making like the next steps, or making the plan? Like, how would you say about going about those? Is there a better way of doing that? Is there just,
Yeah. So you and I are big on planning. Anyone that's in our world, they know that we are. We plan 2 years out. We've already got our 2026, or we had our 2026 dates chosen, in October 2024. We have a plan because we know where we're going. However, I think that what's different about the way we do things is we do plan long term, but I don't think people realize how much we change and alter direction in short terms. So we have the long-term plan so we know where we're going, but we run our yearly plan in 8-week blocks where we do a 6-week sprint and then like a 2-week cool down. And sometimes in that cool down, we're working, sometimes we're not, but we're in that 6-week sprint where we're going pretty fast. And it can change what we think we might be doing. We're actually quite flexible and we allow that to change, but we do still have that big vision in the future. So even when we are altering our direction or pivoting or trying something new, it's still aligned with our long-term goal. So I guess what I want to say here is just take the pressure off yourself that you have to do things a certain way and just simplify the next step. So plan your year, sure, but be really clear about only planning and sticking with the next step. Like, don't think 20 steps ahead, because I think that that's so overwhelming. Just plan the next right thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, with probably a volatile landscape business-wise as well, having a plan that was 2 years out and just sticking to that, as you know, yeah, and I mentioned before AI and a couple of those different things. If you stuck to that 2-year plan like rigidly, and not reviewed it as you went every 8 weeks or so, you could end up like way off course somewhere as well. So I think that's why that part's important.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So yeah, make sure that you're in alignment so that it's the alignment that you're focusing on and not the external noise. And I do want to stop here for just 1 second and say, yes, there's external noise, wallets are closing and all of that. But that doesn't mean that's everyone. Like, there's so much opportunity still out there. That's why we're talking about innovation, because focus on the opportunities, because they're definitely still there.
Yeah, yeah. I think you need to be careful of what would you call it? Like the little part of the world you see. It's like social media. You only see this little part of the world and you miss out on all the other people that are out there. So just making that assumption that everyone's like, not ready to be part of your world is a bit crazy.
Absolutely. We're told about the cost of living crisis. There is definitely a cost of living crisis. Let's not gaslight the people that are out there having a really hard time, because there are. However, it is not everyone, and there's still people out there that aren't having a cost of living crisis right now. There's people that still want your help, and there's people, well, let's not lie, there's people that are in the cost of living crisis that still want the hope of whatever it is that you're offering, or not just the hope, like they're still okay to spend the money because they're like, okay, well, we still want that outcome. And I think that on the back of that people aren't necessarily buying less, but they're buying more consciously. Because of the lack of trust in the market. So I think right now that trust is the new currency.
Yeah, this seems to be a bit of I was going to say a trend. It's not really a trend. Oh, it could be a trend. It's the way it's going. But I think and I'm going to say it again, the age of AI coming more and more, I think the trust and the human capacity, I think is going to be really important moving forwards. And I think right now, that's probably one of the biggest factors you can play on.
What's really interesting, like playing into that trust, we've got, like you said, I swear to goodness, if I see another piece of content written by AI and I can tell, not because of the way it's written, because of where the emojis are or the M dashes that are still in there.
Oh, those M dashes.
Oh my goodness, they drive me crazy. I never saw an M dash. I didn't know they existed before.
I didn't know what it was until AI.
I didn't even know, right? Like it's devaluing your trust. So I think, yes, definitely use AI, definitely do that, but be careful that you don't lose your humanness. And I think that's the same with, and this is going to be super controversial because this goes against everything that's being talked about right now. And when I say everything, just like we just said in my little small bubble, but I'm seeing a lot of people saying, just, sell in the DMs. Don't ever get on sales calls. Let me give you a little glimpse into what I'm seeing. Like, let's think about this in the future when the robots are talking to the robots. Like, what's that like? Is that going to be? Is that trust? I honestly think that being able to get on a call with the people in your world is going to be super standout for trust.
Yeah. I was just thinking as well that if we're talking about, like not freezing, and you might not freeze, but sometimes but your potential buyers, they could be freezing, and the trust is a way to overcome them freezing because they want a bit of assurance and a bit of, am I talking to a person, do I trust this person? And if you're just using DMs and AI, well, I don't think you're going to be able to build that trust the way you could by actually maybe picking up the phone or being in front of them, being a bit I don't know, authentic. So authentic really burned out word now, but authentic anyway.
I think it's very diluted, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
And,
Yeah,
and I think that it's important just to help people to understand when I'm talking about the DMs, I'm talking about doing 100% of your sales in the DMs. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying that it doesn't really sit right with me. I think that there's something special about connecting with a person and having a human to human conversation. Doesn't mean I don't use the DMs. I 100% do. I use the DMs. I've booked my last, I don't know how many people, podcast guests on DMs. The conferences I've been to, a lot of them I connected with people very first on social media and we had a chat in the DMs. Like, I think about most of my network now. That's how I got to know them, was in the DM. So I'm not saying don't do that, but at some point we move that conversation from message to jumping on a Zoom call or jumping on a phone call and having a real like human to human conversation.
yeah, and just on that as well, you might be using DMs for prospecting if that's what you're using them for. But if you're not showing up authentically on social media so people can get to trust you in that way as well, if they see you being authentic, they see you showing up, they see what you're about, that will build the trust as well. So also podcasting does that too. So, because you're showing up. So the more you can show up and they can see you as you, not just a PDF or something or other, then that's actually, I think, a really good way of building trust to start with, to get them moving.
So yes, we've talked a lot about some of the external fears that are out there, but I think the number one takeaway I want you to have from this episode is not to feed into that. Like, your desires are confirmation that you can have what you want. Your desires are available. So create the dream, do the dream, revisit the dream, whatever it is, so that then you know what it is that you want, and then take that just the next step, that one really brave step of putting the post out, showing up on video, making an offer, launching your new program, running the workshop, inviting someone to coffee that could be a potential partner. Like, whatever it is, take that one brave step. But when you know what it is that you want, and dream big, like dream big, whatever it is that you want, you can get there.
Yeah. I would say your potential clients and your current clients are out there. And by you freezing, you're giving up on them. So don't give up on them. Push
Yeah.
forward and support them because they need your help.
Yeah. Yeah. Get really clear on that impact, that legacy piece that you want. So I invite you to think right now, where are you freezing? And once you've recognized it, because that's the first, gosh, what is that quote? All progress starts with the truth. So where are you freezing? And then what's that one next step or one next action that you can take today? I think the biggest piece of this is who do you need to help you? It could be, who do you need to spend time with? Maybe the people in your home life don't understand what you're going through. Maybe you need a business bestie or an accountability partner. Maybe you need to join a mastermind. Maybe you need to join a coaching program. But whatever it is, all of this that we're talking about can be altered and shifted by thinking about, who do I need around me?
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. You need to find your community.
Yeah, totally. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things today. The antidote to freezing is clarity plus action. And if that's what you need, I've got a workbook that I've put together called the $1,000,000 Playbook. I'd love you to download it and go through it. It's at samanthariley.global/playbook. Download a copy of that and get that clarity that you need so that you can take the action. We'll pop the link for that in the show notes below. But Leon, like, what's one thing that you want people to leave this episode with?
I think it's the legacy. If you freeze and don't take action, you're letting someone down.
Oh, wow, that hits. Like, I feel that straight away. I think for me, it's I want what I want because I want it. Like, be unapologetic
Nice.
about that,
Yeah.
and and focus on that and how you can serve people to get where it is that you want to go. It's like that desire plus the service is going to get you to where you want to be. So
Yeah.
be
Love that.
brave, take that next step. And if there's, anything that we can help with, please reach out, ask us on social media, slide into the DMs so that we can have a conversation. And we're always happy to help. Leon, thanks for having this coffee shop conversation with me today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Influenced by Design. And we look forward to joining you on next week's episode. Ciao.